short title. The Bench Beneath the Sycamore one-line theme. A grieving veteran forms an unlikely friendship with a troubled teen, changing both their lives forever, under the quiet watch of a park bench in small-town Ohio. Paragraph 1. In the heart of Maplefield, Ohio, where rust-colored leaves carpeted the streets by late September, there stood a forgotten wooden bench under an old sycamore tree in Riverside Park. For years, no one paid it much mind except for Walt Hennings, a 60-80-year-old Vietnam veteran with a limp and a worn corduroy jacket. Walt came to that bench every day at 4 p.m., rain or shine, sitting quietly with a flask of coffee and an old paperback tucked beneath his arm. The locals thought of him as part of the park's furniture, polite, distant, grieving. No one asked why he came, and he didn't offer it, but what they didn't know was that Walt sat there every day, because 40 years earlier, it was where he had proposed to his late wife Marjorie, the only person who ever made him believe peace was possible after war. She had died 5 years ago, and since then, the bench had become a sacred appointment he never missed. One overcast October day, Mason Bell, a 16-year-old with black nail polish, ripped jeans, and a skateboard, plopped down beside him without a word, bruised lip and all. Walt just glanced at him, sipped his coffee, and said, "Tough day." Mason nodded. "You have no idea." Paragraph 2. For days afterward, Mason kept returning, never asking Walt's name, never saying much, but each time he sat on the bench, the silence between them grew more comfortable. Walt, despite himself, found his heart aching less in Mason's presence. One afternoon, Mason muttered, "They think I'm a freak. My stepdad's a jerk. I get in fights. Whatever." Walt replied, "Sounds like you've got fire. The world just doesn't know where to point it yet." Mason looked at him for the first time. "You were in the army, weren't you?" Walt nodded, slowly. "Did things I don't talk about? Lost people. Spent years angry. Then I met someone who saw through it." He tapped the bench. "Right here." Mason frowned. "You lost her?" Walt smiled gently. "I found peace, then lost her, then found pieces of her again in moments like this." The next week, Mason brought 2 coffees. They drank in silence until Walt said, "You skate like hell's chasing you." Mason chuckled. "Feels like it is." That day, something shifted. Walt offered to teach him woodworking, said he used to make toys for his daughter before she passed. Mason agreed, and from then on, after school, they met at the bench, then walked to Walt's garage-turned-workshop, where lessons began. Paragraph 3. As weeks turned to months, Walt and Mason built birdhouses, tables, and even a simple rocking chair together. Mason's grades improved, and the bruises stopped appearing. Walt, for the first time in years, began waking with a sense of purpose. They still met at the bench always at 4 p.m., but now their silences were filled with shared memories, stories, and the kind of bond that only 2 broken people could understand. One snowy December afternoon, Mason brought Walt a rough sketch. "It's a design for a memorial bench." "For your wife?" Walt blinked back, tears. The sketch showed a carved sycamore leaf on the backrest and a small brass plaque. "In loving memory of Marjorie, she sat beside the storm and made it still." Walt nodded, choked up. Together, they worked through winter evenings to build the bench. On Marjorie's birthday in March, they carried it to the park and replaced the old seat beneath the tree. The town gathered, quietly, watching the 2 unlikely companions as Walt unveiled the bench and laid a single lily on it. Mason stood beside him, no longer a troubled teen, but a young man with roots. Later, Walt whispered, "You remind me of her. You know, brave heart, stubborn soul." Paragraph 4. News of the bench dedication spread. A local reporter interviewed Walt and Mason, and soon the story of the bench beneath the sycamore touched hearts across the state. The mayor declared March 12th Marjorie's Day, and children began leaving flowers at the bench on their way to school. Walt's workshop became a weekend hangout spot where teens like Mason came to build, talk, or just find peace. Walt taught them skills, but, more importantly, he really listened. And Mason, he found stability. His mom eventually left her abusive partner, and Mason got accepted into a trade school for carpentry, with a scholarship funded by a local veterans group, inspired by Walt's mentorship. On the first day of summer, Walt handed Mason a key to the workshop. "Yours now, too. I may not be around forever, kid." Mason hugged him, whispering, "You saved me, Walt." The old man smiled. "No, we saved each other." Years later, after Walt passed quietly in his sleep, the town held a service at the bench. Mason gave the eulogy. "He was a soldier, a husband, a mentor, but to me, he was the man who taught me how to build a life worth living." Beneath the sycamore, Walt's legacy lived on, not carved in wood, but in hearts. He quietly healed one afternoon, one boy, one bench at a time.